Center for Research in Black Culture.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you. Welcome to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. Again, my name is Joy Bivins, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as director of this historic, century-old institution. And I could not be more pleased to welcome you here tonight as we kick off our fall season and continue our Centennial celebration with the inaugural Jean Blackwell Hutson Award and Lecture by honoring the one and only Dr. Carla Hayden. As I know many of you are aware, it takes a long time to plan celebrations of this magnitude. And from the very beginning, we knew we could not pay proper homage to this institution's history without recognizing the leadership and vision of Mrs. Jean Blackwell Hutson. And as we reflected on 100 years of service, we knew it was fitting to honor this legendary librarian, archivist, and leader who helped shape us into the world-class institution we are today. We also knew it was fitting to create an opportunity to not only say her name, but to pay tribute to Black librarianship and recognize the trailblazers who continue her legacy. And no one exemplifies that more than Dr. Hayden, who, like Mrs. Hutson, has spent decades crafting a career that centers literacy and information access for all. Now, Schomburg Center is fortunate to have curators, archivists, and librarians who mirror the tenacity and discernment of Mrs. Hutson and bring to bear their many talents to public service, and I want to acknowledge their work and the role they play in protecting the legacies of Black librarianship, and ask them to stand. So my librarians, my curators, my LTAs, pages, these are the folks who keep the legacy moving forward, keep us moving forward. And I'm so grateful to work with you all. Now, I mentioned the time it takes to plan these celebrations, but it also takes other kinds of support. And I would like to extend deep gratitude to all of our trustees, especially those who are here tonight, including Asia Schomburg, who's the great-granddaughter of Arturo Schomburg. We have the Kathy Rayner, who's such a steadfast supporter of our work. I believe I saw Annette Gordon-Reed, who's also a Board of Trustees member. Of course, I want to thank all of our donors, including the individuals here this evening representing institutional funders, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, the Mellon Foundation, New York Life, MetLife, and the Fulgraf Foundation. It takes a village, y'all. And I want to thank you for being such extraordinary partners and supporters of the Schomburg Center Centennial. I'd also like to extend gratitude to the members of the Schomburg and Langston Hughes Societies. If you don't know, you can ask us, and we will tell you how you can become a member. As well as the Centennial Advisory Committee members who are here for your steadfast generosity. And also, I'd just like to thank the entire community for supporting this important work. And before I go further, I want to recognize another family member of Arturo Schomburg who is here this evening, his grandson, Dean Schomburg. Dean, where are you at? I would also like to thank my colleagues in development and communications for understanding our centennial vision and making sure we have the resources and visibility to celebrate all year long. And of course, a huge thank you to my Schomburg Center colleagues in public programs and exhibitions, as well as our Centennial project manager who have done yeoman's work in bringing the vision of this program to fruition. I know that there are senior leaders from the New York Public Library and colleagues from around the library because they all want to bask in your glory this evening, Dr. Hayden, so thank you all for being here. Tonight, Dr. Hayden will be presented with an award fashioned after M. Scott Johnson's marble bronze sculpture, The Living Key of Sishat. It is here. This is the Jean Blackwell Hutson Award, so you got to do big things if you want to get this in the future. And we are so grateful to Scott, who is also our lead visual instructor for our Junior Scholars Program and a world-renowned sculptor. And you can read more. You can read more about the work on the back of your program. I told you all had a lot to say. Maybe I didn't say that, but I do. And if I left anyone out from thank yous and acknowledgments, please forgive me. Know it's my head and not my heart. And also just know that we are truly grateful for all of you. Now on Saturday, I had the opportunity to briefly examine Mrs. Blackwell Hutson's papers, which are housed in our Manuscripts, Archives, and Rare Books division. Mrs. Hutson's 1984 retirement was recognized in the ALA's Black Caucus newsletter, and even in Jet Magazine's Society World column. You know, she was doing big things. But I was drawn immediately to a multi-page bound volume that included reflections and tributes to her during her retirement celebration, which took place at the Schomburg on March 25th, 1984. Dozens of people offered well wishes. Mary Yearwood is in the house. I saw your name in there. For her, during her retirement celebration. And well wishes for her next chapter, thanked her for her work that she had accomplished in the more than 3 decades of service here as a curator, administrator, and fierce advocate of this storied institution. Now tonight we are gathered here to honor her work and celebrate another trailblazer, our librarian, Dr. Carla Hayden. And we are in for a real treat this evening. So I want you all to sit back, enjoy yourself. But now I want you to join me in welcoming to the podium the president of the New York Public Library, Tony Marks. Have a wonderful evening.
Good evening and welcome to the amazing Schomburg Center. I'm Tony Marks. Good evening. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you as we all continue to celebrate the 100th anniversary of this amazing institution. This anniversary presents us with a momentous occasion, not only to celebrate the history of the center, but the history of librarianship and access to knowledge in our beloved city. I want to echo Joy's heartfelt gratitude and thank you for being here today, to all of you, and especially to our generous trustees and supporters who make the work of the Schomburg and the New York Public possible. Your generosity is critical, especially in this moment in history, when the contributions and culture of the people of African descent face existential threats. The current climate spurs our needs to shine an even brighter light on this work and on the work ahead. Many of you know the story of the man whose name is on the front of this building, the masterful collector Arturo Schomburg, who devoted his life's mission to providing vindicating evidence, as if that should have been necessary, of the power and import of Black life, art, and achievement. And as Joy recognized, we're so delighted that tonight we're joined by Dean Schomburg, by Aisha Schomburg, by fellow trustees of the library, Kathy Rayner, Annette Gordon-Reed. We are here to celebrate this crown jewel of the New York Public Library and of New York and of the world. But the Schomburg isn't just the work of the Schomburgs, though it is that. It is the work of so many and notably, who we celebrate tonight, Jean Blackwell Hutson, who took the Schomburg's mission to collect Black history and stewarded that mission into this great institution. Without her devotion and the librarians who worked alongside her, the Schomburg would not be the premier institution in the world for the study of African American culture and research. Now, you'll hear a lot tonight about Jean Blackwell Hutson, as you should. She started her career at multiple circulating libraries of the New York Public, including our beloved branches, Harlem, Woodstock, Washington Heights, and County Cullen, right next door to this building. She also served as a curator of the Schomburg collection and then chief of the Schomburg Center. She grew the collection. She lobbied for funding for the center, and yes, funding is important, and was behind the major campaign to make the Schomburg Center a key research library under the New York Public Library in 1972. The parallels between her and our speaker tonight, Dr. Carla Hayden, are truly remarkable, starting with shared roots in Florida, but also having dedicated their careers to fortifying both local branch circulating libraries and great research libraries, and the power of those two together, and making sure together that they serve the needs of their communities. I'd like to especially mention Dr. Hayden's work at the Enoch Pratt Free Library, the public library system in Baltimore, Maryland, where she advocated and achieved great after-school and outreach services for teens, which we have tried to follow here at the New York Public Library. She continued her advocacy on the national scale as the president of the American Library Association, opposing sections of the Patriot Act that would jeopardize library user privacy. Sound familiar? As Librarian of Congress, the leading librarian of the land, Dr. Hayden's priorities to modernize the national institution, strengthen its infrastructure and technology, spoke to her unwavering goal to reach all Americans where they are, including patrons in rural areas and people with disabilities. Carla, I have to say, is a dear friend, an amazing colleague. To all of us, she is a warrior hero. I'm going to go off script for just a second here. I am reminded of when Clark Kerr was removed by Governor Ronald Reagan as president of the University of California and asked in a press conference how he felt about this removal. His comment was, "I end as I started, fired with enthusiasm." It's yours, it's yours. Carla is still fired with enthusiasm, as you will see tonight. And she comes by it naturally. Any of you who know her mom, who's in the audience, will understand exactly what I mean. So the seeds sown by Arturo Schomburg and Jean Blackwell Hutson have brought us to this historic moment where we celebrate the Schomburg Center's 100th anniversary, the legacy of its amazing librarians, researchers, visitors, and amazing staff. I want to thank you all for joining this moment as we celebrate the Schomburg Center, the legacy and future of Black librarianship and Dr. Carla Hayden. This is, for all of us, a joyous moment. They can't take that away from us. This is Harlem. You can't take that away from us. And to start with a bang, I'd like to welcome award-winning Broadway and West End performer, Norm Lewis.
I just want to introduce Mr. Kevin Sibley here on the keys. I'm honored to be here tonight, and especially singing these words. I wish I could do like the entire song. It's a long song, but these words are poignant and in honor of my good friend. She'll talk about that later. Yeah, we have a lot in common. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. Oh, please look down and see my people through. Often we feel weary, but He knows our every care. Go to Him in secret, He will hear your every prayer. He'll give peace and comfort to every troubled mind. Come Sunday, that's the day. That's the day. I believe God is now and then and always will be. With God's blessing, we can make it through eternity. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, oh, please look down
Jean Blackwell Hutson was curator of the Schomburg collection from 1948 to 1972. In 1972, she became the chief of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture.
She began her career at the New York Public Library. She worked at the 135th Street branch, which would eventually become the Schomburg Center.
Throughout her tenure, she was a fierce advocate for more resources and more funding for the collection at the state level and at the city level.
She grew the Schomburg's collection. She grew its staff.
She's the unsung hero. She's the one that did the institutional work, often behind the scenes, to make sure that the collection was safe and would survive.
No one exemplifies the legacy of Jean Blackwell Hutson and what she contributed to the field of librarianship more than Dr. Carla Hayden.
When I first heard about Dr. Hayden, she was elected to the Librarian of Congress. We don't get to see many Black people in power making big changes. So she makes me want to work harder, try harder to be my best and to give the community the best that I can give them.
Many people know Dr. Carla Hayden as the former Librarian of Congress, but prior to that, she worked in various public library systems. She was a professor. She educated people about digital access, and she has always supported information literacy.
She led the Enoch Pratt Free Library, which is Baltimore's public library system. And in 2015, when there were ongoing protests after the police killing of Freddie Gray, many businesses and institutions in Baltimore boarded their windows and shut their doors to the community. But Carla Hayden made sure that the library stayed open, and she put a sign in the door of the library that said, "Come in, we're open." She knew that it was important for the library to be with the community in moments of struggle and to stay open and to be part of the community.
In terms of democratization and access, she also made the Library of Congress's materials more accessible to newer audiences. One wonderful moment that recently happened was Lizzo coming to play the flute that was in the collection at the Library of Congress.
How do we tell the story of those who don't often have their story told? And I got a lot of that from Dr. Hayden. When I think about Black librarianship, I think about when I was a little girl growing up, going to the library. It wasn't until a Black librarian in that branch really took me and showed me a whole other collection that there was of books of people that looked like me. And that really, for me, changed my view, my perspective on what could be possible.
The importance of Black librarianship is representation. You get to see yourself in your librarian. You get to see someone who looks like you, who knows what you're going through, who knows the struggles and the plight of African American people.
Both Jean Blackwell Hutson and Dr. Carla Hayden have been champions of making sure that our communities have the access to the information and the knowledge that they need. And in times of struggle and in times of uncertainty, access to knowledge becomes even more critical. I can't think of a more fitting way to celebrate 100 years than by honoring Jean Blackwell Hutson and by honoring Dr. Carla Hayden. I want to thank Dr. Carla Hayden for being here, and I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight as we honor her and as we continue celebrating 100 years of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture.
Please welcome Tracie D. Hall to present tonight's award.
When the taxi dropped me off in front of the Schomburg, it felt like it always does when I come here. It felt like coming to church. And so I'm resisting the urge to say, you know, I just would like to honor Joy Bivins and Stanton Biddle, Kalila and Raquel and Tony. On September 14, 2016, after being nominated by President Barack Obama and sworn in by Chief Justice John Roberts as the 14th Librarian of Congress, head of the largest single library in the world, containing over 178 million items, thereby considered the library of last resort, providing access to materials that cannot be found through local, state, or regional library systems. Dr. Carla Diane Hayden became, in essence and form, the nation's librarian. But, come on now. But she had inarguably become the people's librarian the year before, when, as you heard, and as NBC News in its profile of her reported, quote, when Baltimore was ablaze following the funeral of Freddie Gray, when many establishments, schools, and even churches shut down for days fearing the violence outside, a local library sitting at the epicenter of the riots over the death of a Black man in police custody stayed open so residents would have safe haven. It was then that Dr. Carla Hayden, executive director of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, made the call to throw open the library doors when so many others closed, end of quote. When asked why she took that stand despite buildings literally burning around the Pennsylvania Avenue branch where she camped out to be a place of community refuge in the midst of the chaos, Dr. Hayden replied, quote, I knew that the libraries are community resources. I knew that they are anchors in so many communities. In a lot of communities in Baltimore, especially challenged ones, we are the only resource. If we close, we're sending a signal that we're afraid or that we aren't going to be available when times are tough. We should be open, especially when times are tough. And Dr. Hayden has indeed shown us what leadership unafraid looks like when times are tough. In 2001, voted by its membership as president-elect of the American Library Association, Dr. Hayden stood against efforts to surveil individual library and bookstore records, which was a severe violation of individual privacy. Dr. Hayden is also acknowledged for bringing the Library of Congress squarely into the digital age and vastly expanding its public access. Now, as a librarian myself, I had to do some fact checking, and I want you to check this out. In fiscal year 2021, well, I could go back just 1 year after Dr. Hayden took the helm of the Library of Congress, the visits to its website increased fourfold. Somebody say fourfold. Somebody say receipts. In fiscal year 2021, the Library of Congress digital reach grew to an astonishing 617 million page views. And when Lizzo played James Madison's Crystal Flute on that day, there were 7 million visits to the Library of Congress's website. Dr. Hayden has made the treasures of the library vaults our collective treasures. That's why when on May 8th of this year, the letter arrived beginning with, Dear Carla, and dismissing Dr. Hayden from her position unceremoniously after an illustrious near decade of service, the entire nation erupted in disapproval. The pushback was so enormous that there was no credible media source that did not cover it. The fact that this dismissal happened in a month that saw the most extraordinary push out of Black women from the U.S. workforce ever was not lost on us. But Dr. Hayden, true to form, was the epitome of composure, telling us that she would continue to work on behalf of the information needs of the people no matter what. And that's why I'm so glad that word came true through her new position as senior fellow at the Mellon Foundation. But even before all of that, Dr. Hayden has served as a North Star for me. When I met her at a library conference just a few years after she had been voted president of the American Library Association. Meeting her at that conference as a newly minted librarian, I don't think I even quite had my degree. I think they were still mailing it to me. She showed enough interest in my career that she gave me a business card and said, call me if you ever need anything. And don't you know that I boldly, and I told Carla I was going to tell this story, I boldly took her up on that and called Dr. Carla Hayden up on her job. And she had an assistant. And the assistant said, can I take your name and I'll see if she can give you a call back. And when she called me back, I said, there is a workshop happening in Baltimore. I have enough money for the plane fare, but I don't have enough money for 5 days of hotel. Can I come and stay with you? And listen here, this is why Dr. Hayden remains the yardstick that I use to check and measure my professional aspirations against my humanity. She said, yes. And on top of that, and I'm almost choking up here. On top of that, she drove me to the workshop and picked me up each day. It is this blend of brilliance and commitment and professionalism and excellence and empathy that sets Dr. Carla Diane Hayden apart as the sum that any informationist, any librarian who desires to leave impact and record must measure themselves. And by the way, she is a librarian's librarian. She doesn't just give you a book. She tells you what page and what chapter you should be looking at. She is one of the greatest living leaders this country has. She is certainly one of the greatest librarians of the 21st century. And most importantly, she is a great human being. It is my profound pleasure, one of the great pleasures of my career, to most fittingly present the inaugural Jean Blackwell Hutson Award with her exemplary stewardship. To present that award to the extraordinary, the once in a lifetime, Dr. Carla Diane Hayden.
Good. I'm gonna tell them about the sweet potato pie. I'm gonna tell them that. something. I have to say something, though. Because Tracie has taken us to church, and we already have our fans, right? So I pulled mine out, because Tracie took us there. And what you see, though, is the future and what Black librarianship and librarianship really is, and that's Tracie. Now what? And during those 5 days, I had to call it, I had to have reinforcements. So my mom introduced her to her sweet potato pie. And now it's like the Underground Railroad. When I see I had to bring some pie. She said, "You got the pie?" So I can't thank you enough, Tracie, for what you've said and what that means. I also want to thank in absentia Tony Marks, who is a friend, and I said I'm going to steal that I'm still fired up with enthusiasm, because I had never been fired before. So I needed something to say. So that's a good one. And it says lecture, but it's not a lecture, because I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. But even though you have a choir, they have to still practice and still sing. And Norm Lewis, wow. He was the featured performer at the donor events at the Library of Congress. And at one, they made sure that they brought out a copy from Porgy and Bess that he had starred in, from George and Ira Gershwin. So that was wonderful to hear him. And though I have to paraphrase Ms. Bivins, in her recent New York Times by the book interview, if you haven't seen it, you saw it. It's so wonderful to be in, as she said, this place that has provided oxygen for others like me for a century. And I must add, for librarians, especially those like me, who look to librarians like Jean Blackwell Hutson. I wish that picture was back on there, but you have it on your programs. You can see the determination. She's in those stacks and she's looking. And this place is hallowed ground. And it's an example of what can happen if you have dedication and determination. And now to have a celebration of her and this institution, and for me to receive an award in her name is not only humbling, but inspirational. Because she exemplified the best of Black librarianship and scholarship right here, and it's an honor for me to be part of her legacy. And yes, Tracie, I am the type that knows what page and stuff, so I'm gonna refer to a book, and I'm thinking, gosh, she knows me too well. Because in her 1990 chapter about the Schomburg, in Black Bibliophiles and Collectors, Preservers of Black History, she talked about, of course, the Schomburg. But in rereading it, it was wonderful to hear her describe her tenure and the experiences and the growth of the center, because her spirit came through. So I just want to give you a few quotes right from there. So you see her, she looks like this. But she said, "I came as a substitute and stayed for 32 years. She goes on, she said, I continually stub my toe on the budget problem. One of my favorites is a library administrator who works on infrastructure. She said, I recall the turmoil I caused among staff for having the collection inventoried. Such mundane tasks had not been performed in 20 years. And you could just hear it like, oh yeah, cataloging and all that. I bet they really didn't like that. And then one of my favorites, I may have played a part in arousing concern about the welfare of the Schomburg because I spoke of the need for an endowment when I was given an award in 1966. And I talked about what Tony thought. Yeah, she did that. And she went on to say, though, when Dr. Kenneth B. Clark received an award on the same occasion, he said something that resonated with Mrs. Hutson and still holds true for me tonight. He said, accepting an award for past behavior is making a commitment for the future. And I only hope that I can be part of that future and continue and work with so many of you that are here, to have David Leverin Lewis in here, and Annette Gordon Reed, the historians who know that there is hope in history, and it has to be preserved, and especially at a time when the very fact that people who look like me did exist, did make contributions, were part of this country, still are part of this country. It's even more important that the Schomburg continues, that we have that hope, and to know that art is going to continue. The Studio Museum, Thelma Golden was here, is going to be reopening shortly in November. So think about what Tracie tells her students now at Washington State in the library school there. Think about if Harriet Tubman had had a GPS. Just think about it. So we have she'd be in Brooklyn. So there is hope in history. Think about how dire things were then and what we have to work with. We have the enthusiasm. We have the young people who know how to use every tool there is. We have it, and we have people who are determined that the history will not be lost. It won't be stolen. And so thank you for this recognition, because I'm going to have the joy of talking with Joy in just a minute. But especially, and Norm mentioned that there was a connection with Florida, and that's because I was born on the campus of Florida A&M. And his family, everybody, he said, but him, went there. But we connected on that. Yeah, okay, you're still here, Norm? Okay. Because they had a strong music department. And whenever I think about the fact that my mom, who's here with me tonight, pianist, my dad, violin, but in the early 50s, where were they going to be in an orchestra or do that? So they taught. It was typical of that. So I think about dreams deferred and how we have to continue, because the irony of all ironies, the reason why I'm here as a librarian is because I had no musical talent. So let's just, two musicians, they had hopes. By the time, when I was 12, we all agreed. I gave my last recital. But they didn't have no pressure, because they knew that as they listened to, they could look and read notes and hear music. I could look at text and hear words. And they were like, okay. But the irony was when I was appointed Librarian of Congress, it has the largest collection of music in the United States of the world. And so here I am with Lizzo playing the flute, but also making sure that Billy Strayhorn's collection came to the Library of Congress. So I just want to thank you for this recognition. Thank you for doing it and making sure that my mom got to hear all those wonderful things, because I don't care how old you are, it's such a blessing that when you can give back and say, Mom, thank you. So this is beautiful. It might have to go in her living room. But I want to thank all of you for being here, and I can't wait to be part of the future that we're all going to share to make sure that history continues. So thank you. Joy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, and look at her. She looks like Miss Pendergrass from Springfield, Illinois, and the grandson of one of the people from Springfield is here, Mr. Pryor. Yeah, he's here, who was my state librarian.
Fantastic. So, we have been to church, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. We got the fans. Everybody got your fans?
Got your fans, right?
Fans.
And I'm a church girl, so, don't get me started. But I feel so blessed to have the opportunity to be able to be in conversation with you for these few minutes. That's another thing I learned in church. When you say a few minutes, and then it just keeps going on and on.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh, she's ambitious.
Well, no. So, of course, I want to thank you for being here and saying yes so quickly to accepting the Jean Blackwell Hutson Award. And I think I can speak for all of us here at Schomburg and around the NYPL. We're so happy to have you here this evening. And I want to have a conversation that does focus squarely on joy,
Yes.
and on future, and on what we're looking forward to, but that doesn't skirt, the pain that has been part of the last few months, primarily after losing your position. So I wanted to know, I want to start out just getting to know you a little bit better. So how did you come to librarianship, Dr. Hayden? What brought you to the field?
Okay. I've said it publicly before, but I call myself an accidental librarian. I always, and I mentioned that I love books and reading from a child, and I knew that was my thing. I could do that. I loved reading and everything, but I never really knew how those wonderful books got in those libraries or who was selecting. I just loved it. And so when I finished my undergrad in political science, history, was wondering what I was going to do, graduated, and my dear mother said, while you're thinking about it, maybe you should seek some employment. And so between job interviews where I went and they said, oh yeah, you had good grades and everything, but I had never worked, and that's why internships and things are so important, and I advise people on that. I would go to my favorite place in downtown Chicago.
We talked about that.
Yeah, the Chicago, because you know that. And it was the old library then, the Cultural Center now.
Yes.
And while I was there between job interviews, one of the people who had just graduated with me said, hey, Carla, you here for those library jobs? They're hiring anybody. I said, what? And he said, yeah, anybody with a undergraduate degree. And we still do that in the profession. That's the gateway thing, the library associates in there. So I went up, I applied, and he didn't get the job, but, he did all right. He did all right. I knew that later. But anyway, and then they put me said, I like books and reading, and I like to work with children. And they put me on the south side of Chicago in a little storefront branch, similar to the one that I went to here in New York, PS 96 in Jamaica, Queens, and there was a little branch, and I love that. And that's when I saw what librarianship really was, because the librarian there was in library school. I didn't even know about graduate library school. And the community was right there, that people would come in. Back in the old days, they would come in, you had the physician's desk reference book. Oh, there's some older people. And they would come in with their prescriptions and say, yeah, this was, the library was the place. And then the kids would come in every day after school and that, and I thought, wow, this is more than I thought. This is something. So I applied, went to apply for graduate library school. I got rejected. Well, the dean of the library, the dean of the library school, Stanton probably remembers her, Peggy Sullivan. Peggy Sullivan. She was the dean of the graduate library school, University of Chicago, right? And I went in, I'd like to be a librarian, and she said, well, I don't think you have what it takes. And I said to myself, this is library school. How hard can it be? I mean, I was not happy. So I went back, I went to my mom, who was anxiously waiting. And she said, well, don't you want to help people? Don't you want to, it's not just about, putting the books on the shelves. And so I went back to Peggy and told her, I do have what it takes. I want to help people, and I want to go into communities. And she said, that's what I was looking for. And even as I advanced in my career and everything, if Peggy was sitting in the audience, I would tense. Because she was that kind of old librarian that did that, yeah. But that's how I got into it. And then once I said, oh, wow, this is it.
So we also talked a little bit about the fact that you spent most of your career in urban settings.
Yes.
And working in communities, and what connected you to that, and what really drove you to want to work in these city libraries, public libraries?
So many times, and that experience in that South Side branch really brought it home to me. That is the only place. And when you take access away from communities, you are closing a door in so many ways. And so yes, in Baltimore, I had some experience. My mom went into social services in Chicago, so when I was after school, I would be at community meetings with her. And I'd hear, you as a young person, you're still hearing people get up and talk about housing or this or that or the other in a community meeting. So I had a sense, even before I got into librarianship, of there's real information needs and real needs in communities. And so it meant more for me. That's why I had to think about the Library of Congress, though.
Right.
And people say, what, you had to think about it? I said, yes, I did, because I thought, what could I do at the world's largest library with all these collections and things? How could I do that? And then President Obama, I had the job interview of the lifetime. Here I am in the Oval Office saying, whoa. But he said, I've seen the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets the night he was assassinated. And he went on to all the treasures he had seen at the Library of Congress as president. And he said, what could you do to make sure that everyone in this country could see what I've seen and had access? And I said, well, I think I can do that. I can open up this treasure trust.
So
And
it
so
was
that's
really the access.
It was that, because as a career librarian, we all knew about the Library of Congress. You go to conferences and they all had on suits and ties. Right, Tracy? Okay, the Library of Congress booth at the library conferences was, so you felt you weren't smart enough even as a librarian to go to their booth. Now we have had happy hour, the t-shirts, telling everybody we're the front row, doing all this kind of stuff, trivia, all that. And so opening it up. And so the one thing that I was really pleased that I was able to see to completion, there's some more things coming at the Library of Congress, but it was the first time ever to have a treasures gallery. And in that treasures gallery are the contents of Abraham Lincoln's pockets the night he was assassinated, but also the Blackwell family tree. Miss Blackwell, African-American woman, had started researching her family history in the early 1970s. And she worked meticulously. And she had a quilt made. And one of the relatives was Arthur Ashe. And she made sure, now this was back when you had whiteout and everything, and she had people helping her, and she did all this research. But when she passed, the members, it was gigantic. They didn't know what to do with it. And the librarian was still there who had helped her all those years, young and African-American librarian. And he said, well, we'd like it. And they couldn't believe that the Library of Congress. So in that treasures gallery, the Blackwell family tree. And I was there when it opened. And when it opened, one of the interns at the Library of Congress, because we did a lot with getting young people from different backgrounds, was up there, and she said, I think one of my relatives is a Blackwell. And then she called her mother, and then sure enough, there they were. We opened to the public, and word had gotten out that this Blackwell family tree was there. And so I was there on that Saturday when there was an African-American family, and they stood there, and they were looking, and I said, are you all Blackwells? I said, yeah. The young man had the photograph on his phone of death certificates and things that his grandmother had given him to look up. And because Arthur Ashe was on there, you could kind of figure out the date.
Right.
And he was able to find his family members. And while we were standing there, another African-American family came up. Are you all Blackwells? They were. They had never met. So they stand there taking pictures in front of the Blackwell meeting, and the grandmother, one of them said, they look like Blackwells. But to me, that was the moment when I said it was all worth it. It was worth it because their family tree is in that same gallery with the other treasures.
Well, I think there are two things that stick out to me for that. It is, how do we connect broad audience to the things that we have deemed treasures, icons, and how do we problematize the notion of a treasure? What is actually a treasure?
That's right.
Yeah, so, and that the library has the potential to make that or help audiences make those connections.
Now, when I did the tour, I always loved being here.
You didn't say anything.
We didn't know what was going on. We thought we were doing good. We had to get technical help. All right, we're just talking. You might not have heard anything we said. Oh, my Lord. Woo. Now, that is like church.
Yeah.
People sing, some of them you wish they weren't singing.
And then talk about it after.
Oh, talk about them.
Yes, yes.
So, back to when I went and saw what you had about, is it Fab Freddy?
Fab Five Freddy?
Yeah. In the Schomburg. The gym shoes. That's a treasure of its own. So yes, you can determine what a treasure is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do want to ask you, as you know, this is an uncertain time, and there's so many threats to access to information, to the creation of information, and I wonder how you feel libraries have the power
They do.
to intervene or to shift this.
Libraries have the power to continue by being and still doing what we do. The chapter, Tracie, you just spoiled this whole thing. In Alberto Manguel's History of Reading, there's the chapter called Forbidden Reading. And the photo, some people know that. And then there's that chapter, there's a photograph of a woman, and it looks like she was a former slave, and she's standing there with a book in front of a shack and everything. And to paraphrase him, as centuries of dictators, tyrants, slave owners, and other illicit holders of power have always known, an illiterate crowd is the easiest to rule. Okay? And if you cannot, as we say, stop people from learning to read, because there's a reason why all those laws were there about slaves not reading. That's why Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free, because they can't take that from you. You can read everything. That's why they had to have the abridged Bible for black people, because that Let My People Go section was kind of
problematic.
So there is, they had a special colored people's Bible, abridged. And so that idea that is, when you are cutting out access, you are really looking at that. And so they get into book burning, the Nancy thing, all of that. But that chapter is about that.
And in that, what hopes do you have for libraries to contribute in this present moment?
Well, there's hope in history.
Yes.
And when you think back, you think about, what if Harriet Tubman had a, GPS? Think about Mrs. Hudson. People weren't that interested with Schomburg, and I'm so glad that his descendants are here, because that's what happened. People like him and the other black collectors that at that time knew that they had to preserve the history, make it available. And so we still have that mission, and we have to keep continuing to do it.
I always think about our forebears at this institution really seeming very present focused, but really being future focused, right? The saving of the materials is for tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
It's not necessarily for the folks who are presently here. We do things for the future, not just for the now.
That's right. And you preserve it, and you make sure that people can have access to it. It's not just totally locked up. And you had the Aaron Douglas, you flipped that, and now people can see that. Just the fact that the artists here, Lorraine Hansberry, I have to tell you, librarians all over the world were jealous of that.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Well,
you've got the jewels and the things, but you make it and you present it, and it's right here. And so we are collecting to make sure that people see and know, yes, it did happen.
Absolutely.
It did happen.
Absolutely. And right now, what's bringing you joy in the...
Look at this. This is... because, and guess what? So I'll be at the Mellon Foundation I'll be fired with enthusiasm. But really, because they've asked me to just help in their efforts, public knowledge, and to think about the future of libraries and how even the private sector and the philanthropy can help. as the federal funding has been diminished.
I won't ask you to make any predictions about that, but I am
Oh,
curious.
if I could, wouldn't that be something?
I know.
There are a lot of nice church ladies that have had to renew their faith. I've heard my mom's and some of her friends, they've had to pray harder.
Pray hard.
Because of some of their thoughts. Yeah, they've had it. So,
Yeah.
So we don't know. But think about 30 years ago, 100 years ago. What was it like then? Mr. Schomburg was starting his collection. Things didn't look that rosy in the future.
That is really good information and directive, actually, when I think about when we get in our feelings currently. I often go back to 1925.
Okay.
May 8th, and what the landscape was when we started and what the faith it took to start
Yes.
with. And to not know what would become of the things you plant, right? And so I wanted to know, what do you feel like you've planted in this field and in this world?
All I have to do is listen to Tracie and look at Tracie and be so proud when she was Times 100 most important people in the world, first librarian, and all that. And I was there when she got the, what was the National Book, it was a big thing. Big award here in New York City.
National Book Award, was that right?
What was it, Tracie? Yeah. And they had the librarian. Tracie was the first one. And she wowed them so that all the other speakers start saying what she said. You've been at events like that.
I have.
The librarian blew it out.
Say what you said anyway, Tracie, after you gave us something for sure. So
that's what you see.
Yeah.
Because, we're maturing, but you're here and seeing you and what you're doing and what Schomburg is doing. All right? When I opened up that New York Times and saw you in the buy the book, I said, okay. All right. So that's what gives you hope. That's what you see. And you see people working together. That's what gets you going.
Does it fuel you to know, and I'm sure it is, I'm going to answer my own question, that you have inspired generations of librarians and knowledge workers by the example that you've set? I mean, I think what Tracie has mentioned is, how do you rate or put your own professional aspirations and align that with the kind of human you want to be? And how does that, that kind of, do you make those kind of determinations? Is there something guiding you that you?
Oh, well, my mom,
yes.
Always. Because I remember early on, and the first thing she would drill into me, don't you ever look down on anybody else. I don't care who it is. And that was like the number one rule. And the person that's the maintenance person is going to be Mr. Johnson as a deacon on Sunday. So, don't get it twisted, as the kids would say now. You've just been fortunate, and because you've been fortunate, you did.
Yes.
That's what you're supposed to do. And sometimes you have to say, this is my lane. They also say, stay in your lane. So if you're doing good in your lane, Don't try, because sometimes I know you've had this. I know a lot of us have had it, especially recently. You wish you could just fix a lot of stuff. But you can't. So, but what can you do where you are?
Right.
And if we all are doing what we can where we are, and it's a collective, that helps, because in times like these, yes, there's a lot of shock and this, and you're discombobulated, and it's this, but then it's like, no, you gotta get grounded. You gotta reach out to your community, your people, what you can. Don't let them, Sojourner Truth, I cut that out, there's a card that said, I will not let the darkness around me dim the light of my life. It's a card. I think you have it in the shop. But Sojourner Truth, I mean, think about that.
Right.
We can't.
Yeah, you can't. And you are reminding us that we need not look at these folks, these icons, as just icons, but they had something to say to us, and they were living lives. And I think that connection, that we can utilize these materials to help our audiences make is really where the power and the strength lies.
And I know they want us to wrap up, because I've seen them.
I can't see anything.
They're gonna take our mics away again. But one of the photos that you showed in the video, which was a lovely video, was one of my other moments of just saying, here's something. Dr. Lonnie Bunch is the 14th Secretary of the Smithsonian, after he did what he did with the museum. And that photo showed, and I am still the 14th librarian.
You are?
Okay. That's right. I got used to saying that. I'm the 14th. So he was 14. What are the odds of that happening at the same time? The world's largest museum, the world's largest library, here we are. And one of the things that happened, our curators worked together, and they were working together, and they said, there's a photograph, the first known photograph of Harriet Tubman has come up for auction. So Lonnie didn't have enough, I didn't have enough, but we pooled it together. And I'd never been to an auction before, so you got to watch what you do. you could end up. But anyway, we purchased it so it could stay in public hands. And so what the Library of Congress did was preserve it and they do that and then digitize it. And when you see that movie about Harriet, the last scene is her getting ready to pose for that photo.
Oh, wow.
And now that photo, the first known photo of Harriet Tubman, is on fingernails, notebooks, everything. But what we wanted to show, and it was on exhibit at the museum, so was that's the Harriet Tubman that had the rifles and stuff, because you usually see her, she's older, but this is Harriet Tubman. When she's dressed and she's looking like, oh yeah, she's the one that did it.
She's the one.
And that was to be able to, these institutions to come together and do that. So they can't take that away.
Absolutely. Well, I know you are out here doing wonderful things.
Well, I'm trying.
And I have to thank you for being here. And I have to thank you for the work that you've done in crafting a career that we all can look to as a model. And I know that my Schomburg friends and neighbors will want to stand up and join me in feting our librarian, Dr. Carla Hayden. Thank you so much.
Get some pie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. She's putting it.
What do you want us?
Oh, I'm gonna have my fan out.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Do you want me to get that for you?
No, but we're gonna take a photo of
Okay.
the front of the stage.
Thank you, Freddie. I have no.